Hello, this is going to be about creating a Docker MCP server in Python. MCP, Model Context Protocol. It allows you to interface with LLMs of any vendor. DeepSeek's a slight quirk, anomaly. But anyway, creating a Docker MCP server in Python. And this, I've already got an example on the screen that I've made, so we'll work back once I've just shown you a quick demo of it. And the demo, if I can just escape this, I'm using MCP Inspector. If I just refresh this, so we're connecting to the MCP server running in a Docker container. So you can see here we've got Docker, then run -i -rm -init MCP 360. 360 is the name of my demo one. So name Python 360, content hello, subscribe, run tool. I'm just going to move that down. Run tool, and there you go. Added note, Python 360 with content, and you can see the output down here as well. So that's if we clear that, list tools, add note, run it again, run tool. There you go, added note. So if we go to the terminal, you can see it's received message. This MCP inspector is how you test it, or how I test it. I'm not paying for Claude or anything like that, but I want to be able to develop an MCP server. And this is what I started with. So MCP Create Server, and this is on GitHub. And it's created 4 months ago, but it works. We're in March, 21st of March today, 2025. So if you're using UVX, do UVX create MCP server. You'll need to have UV 0.4.10 or greater. So UVX create MCP server, and you get this directory structure. This is the file that you will want to go into. Once you go into that file, you can then create your own MCP server. As I say, the benefit of using the template is, so it's using Ginger behind the scenes. The benefit of using it is that you don't have to write all the boilerplate stuff each time. You don't need to install or configure any dependencies manually. The tool will set up everything you need to create an MCP server. I'm not going to scroll through all this. I've given you the link now, so this should set you up to get going with it. Now, Docker, I had a lot of issues with Docker, and my issues were that I was trying to use a shortened name, MCP 360, but my actual project name was Python 360. So if you're going to shorten, and what helped me was I started looking at the Python SQLite MCP server. One of the things I was missing to start with was I was not using the entry point. If you come down here right to the end, no, sorry, that's the actual server. The Dockerfile, rather, was what I used for reference. So the Dockerfile for SQLite, when running the container, add blah, blah, blah. Oh, yes, so the entry point, and that's what you need. So that's, for instance, if you were doing Docker run, you would do Docker run MCP, yes, you Docker run, and then that command. So in my case, I'm doing Docker run MCP-360. So we'll get to the good bit in a second, which is, I'm going to stop that now because I've shown you it works. Hopefully that's inspired you to create your own Docker. So I think if you can Dockerize your server, it allows, for a start, it's just an easier way to make it more accessible for other people, I think. So let's just try and find my directory that I did it in. And yeah, so I did CD Python 360. If I was to, next time I do this, I won't make life hard for myself, and I will actually call I will actually call my container the same name as the project. So Dockerfile, that's what I've created. The pyproject.toml file, that's like a requirements.txt file if you've not used UV before. I think UV is quite controversial because it's sort of not 100% open source, but as long as you know how to use requirements.txt, and you know, if Astrid ever turn out to be bad, then we can all go back. So if we go to source and then server, source project name, then server.py. All I changed here was that's my server name. It's basically giving you a resource prompt, resources prompts. It's handling the sessions for you, and you know that throughout it's using. I mean, this is pretty much boilerplate, and you'll use this each time. Obviously, your server name you'll change. So server name, that is that's kind of linked to. In my case, it's linked to MCP-360, and I'll show you where it's linked. So this is what caught me out, and I was starting to get quite fed up, but once I solved this, I was quite pleased. So MCP-360, that's how you call the Docker container, and that's what the project's called. And obviously, the main is the main of your server, the packages. So to be honest, if you're doing it as whatever you want to call your project. If you want to call your project banana, just do banana there, banana, and yeah, you don't need to be doing a different name there. So Python 360, that's what I used when I started the project, which was using create a Python MCP server. So I did UVX create MCP server, and sorry, I tell a lie. I did. So my project, this is the kind of nested directory structure. So to create a new server, run either of these commands. So let's actually do that again. That's interesting. I've also, this error message, you get it because of path. And each time you run it, you'll need to update your path. So again, ChatGPT helped me with that. It isn't stored, but because it's not in path, it doesn't find it. So I don't know if I'll find that right now, but anyway, let's move on to the Docker side of things. I don't like leaving unfinished business, so I will just, what is the issue here? It is definitely installed. Yeah, so I don't need to do upgrade because it's all to do with path. It depends if you're on Linux, Mac OS, or Windows. So I don't want to kind of go down that cul-de-sac right now. So let's look at the Docker file, because I think the Docker file is key to all of this. So if we go to Python 360, bat's just like cat but colourful. Docker file. And there we go. So because I had UV installed, honestly, yeah, that's just a path thing. It's really boring. I'm sure everybody who uses Python's had the path problems at some time. this is actually quite a new installer. I'm using Pop OS, and anyway, working directory app. That's the directory that will exist on the container that you build. So you're copying the pyproject.toml, which is the file that I showed you that had the Python 360 in. Pyproject.toml is obviously the equivalent to requirements.txt. Copy readme.md. You may get an error saying that readme is missing. If it's missing, just do touch and readme. UV-lock. So UV-lock is just locking your dependencies. So then run and then mount. Copy and paste all this. It's not worth. We're here to do programming. We're not here to do the intricacies of Docker settings. But mount, type, bind, source, readme. So add, and then source Python 360. So as I say, if your project's called banana, then you need to add banana there. And then that's what name. So you could call it a different name when it arrives on the container. I'd recommend, having had my issues today, I'd recommend just keeping your project the same everywhere. Okay, then from Python, use the 3.12 slim bookworm, which is fairly current, and it's, as it says, it's slim. The working directory is app, and then copy from, and then there's some UV stuff. So copy this. If you want to spend hours trying to get it all to work, then and understand every single bit, that's fine. But if you just want to get your MCP server up and running, and start writing some code, then copy this if you like. Entry point. So entry point, that was the important bit. An MCP 360. So if you stick with the same name everywhere, then you'd be putting in Python 360 there. So when you build your Docker container, your Docker image, you actually can change the name of it there. So I'm not a Docker expert, but this is kind of the result of several hours work and research. So I just wanted to share it and document it while it's fresh in my mind. And also I was trying to unpick the syntax as well. So yeah, to run, why is that not getting bigger? I don't know. But to run it, you've got npx, which fires up the inspector. And then rather than doing uvx run, or I forget the TypeScript command, typically if you were just running a Python MCP server, you would just put Python there. But instead, I'll put all of this in the video description. And I'm not having a great video here because I don't know why that's not failing to get enlarged. But let's just go back to the pyproject.toml because I think this is important. So project scripts, if you want to have your Docker container called like a nice short name, but your project that you started your project with when you did MCP, when you used the template, if you want to change it, then this is the line, project.scripts. The things you need to add MCP with CLI inside square brackets. So you would do UV add end quotes and then MCP CLI. I've shown that in some other videos and it's working now, so fine. Let's just go back and demo this one more time because I think this is so cool. So we've actually got, if you want to check it, Docker PS, so it's not running. Now, if your server is long-lived, if you want it always running in a continuous loop, it will show up when you do Docker PS. Don't panic though if it doesn't show up when you do Docker PS, because if you're just using a tool and you just want it to add some numbers or go off and fetch something, you only want that container to be running when it's called, so it doesn't need to be long-lived. So I was having concerns that it wasn't working properly because it wasn't showing up when I did in Docker PS. So if I do Docker image ls, you can see all my tests. But there's the MCP 360. So the image is there. If I do Docker run MCP 360, I tell a lie, this does, no it doesn't. So do you see how long that took? If I run it again, yeah, so about 10 seconds, so it only runs for 10 seconds. And because this kept happening, I kept going back to ChatGPT and saying, what's wrong with my server? But there was nothing wrong with it. In actual fact, as we've proven with let me just go back to the syntax to run the Docker container. So, that's maybe too big. Is that okay? Sorry, clear. Let me just bring it back up again. So npx is what you need to do to run the inspector. So that's nothing to do with what you do. That's just the way to bring up the inspector. Because obviously the inspector is just running in your browser. So then Docker run, because we've built our MCP server via a Dockerfile. Well, I'll get to that in a second. I'll just show you the syntax to do the build. So then -i, -rm, --init. If you're familiar with Docker, then this will be really obvious, but this probably is slightly specific to the Model Context Protocol inspector, and it's specific to what you've built with the Python MCP server template. There's so many different moving parts here, I know. So that's what I'm trying to kind of bring together within one video. So we've got Docker, Python, MCP server. If we just go across, and I'll try and find you the trying to think and talk on a video is easier said than done. So yeah, Docker build. This is once as you can see, this is what fixed it for me. So project scripts. So this is what I had to add into my pyproject.toml. I wish I hadn't done that because I lost where I was. There we go. I'll just have to leave it at that size for now. So that's what I had before. So it was keeping that and that the same. But if you want to call your server, and I would recommend sticking to kind of the MCP hyphen and then kind of a very short name. This is what you need to do. So, and then to actually build your server, you will need to do docker build -t, the name of your what you want to call it, space, and then a dot. The dot just means build it in the same place. So I can build it again. And you can also do no cache. So if you're worried that it's got some old stuff in it, you can do that as well. No -cache. You see it takes longer because it's having a clean out. So that's built it. So if you do docker ps, there's nothing there, but if you do docker image ls, then you can see, and it built it 11 seconds ago. So I've shown you how to do your Dockerfile, shown you how to do your, so your Dockerfile, pyproject.toml, those are the two important things. Obviously, the other important thing is your server, but I think there's more material out there on how to write the server. And to be honest, the server, you can even you can ask Claude, ChatGPT. You can look at some TypeScript examples. You can go on GitHub and you can look at the SQLite version, the fetch version. There's a lot of code out there, and obviously there's the SDK. So you've got the Python MCP SDK. There's obviously the TypeScript SDK, and you just saw there's a Rust one now as well. So yeah, also don't forget to. That's interesting. I haven't really looked at this so much, but this one is not using fast MCP, which in a way is good because it's sort of one less dependency. So using types, initialize options, notification options, server, pedantic, std.io. So all this is std.io, but what it's doing is you're using std.io, but actually the Docker is via port 8000, I think I'm using. Yeah, and say using async IO. So if you've not done much of async IO, it's probably just worth having 15 minutes or 2 hours like I did last night, just having a bit of a refresher with async IO, Python. So whenever you want to do something that could be blocking, you use await, because that then allows the server to get on with other stuff and then come back once it's got the promise or the future, whatever it's called in Python. So yeah, async, really worth knowing, I think, with MCP Server. So let's just do one more demo and then we'll wrap it up. I think I've covered everything. But what I've got here took several hours to... No, that's where I did the CL for clear. Right, do it again. So what I've got here took several hours to get working. A lot of it was my own fault because I wasn't keeping the same name. Here we go, MCP Inspector. So we've looked at MCP Inspector, we've looked at using Docker, we've looked at using the MCP Server template for Python. So we've covered quite a few things here, and I think this should be just a really a really useful video to always come back to, because it's got all of the things that you need to create an MCP server in Python and put it into a Docker container. Even TypeScript, if you're used to TypeScript, some of that Docker stuff should be a good starting point, and then obviously just paste it into ChatGPT or whatever, and off you go. I think I've got no reservation. Yeah, just bear in mind that if you've got MCP open somewhere else, you will get into you'll get into problems with it because it's fighting with itself. If you want this code, I'm happy to drop me a line in the comments. There you go. Drop me a line in the comments, and you can make this dark as well if it's burning your eyes out. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching. Thumbs up, like, subscribe. These videos, I try not to watch or copy other people's videos. So this is what I've researched. This is what I've written. This is what I've been troubleshooting. And I've not done a Medium article. I've not tried to put clickbait on LinkedIn. This isn't clickbait for YouTube. I'm not making much money out of this, so yeah, all thumbs up, please. Subscribe, and just keep helping me, and I'll keep helping you in making some more MCP videos, because I think a protocol is always going to be better than a framework, because a protocol, once it gets adopted, like HTTP or TCP, it's going to be around forever, isn't it? It's like the game of chess. You can try and play chess with different rules, but you know, nobody's going to be interested. So there we go. A protocol is a good thing in my view. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think a protocol is a good thing? Do you think it's already there's flaws with it? Do you think it's just too slow? It's not. I know you've got the std.io and the SSE, but they're working on that, and I think WebSockets is available via the Python SDK, but it's not actually part of the protocol as such. But yeah, I mean, you can always take these protocols and just, augment them, I would say. So yeah, thanks for watching, thumbs up, and I will be back in a few days, hopefully. So thanks for watching, thumbs up, and all that.